Alright guys, so welcome to another video. So today I'm actually going to be deploying the Raspberry Ninja, which is basically part of vdo.ninja. It's a stripped down version of vdo.ninja, and I'm going to be deploying it on a Jetson Nano and an Orange Pi 03. So what I've got over here, I've got a Jetson Nano board. This is the Jetson Nano 2GB model. I've put it in an acrylic case over here, and I've got an SD card. It's going to be running off an SD card, and I've also got the Orange Pi 03 right over here, this board. So I've actually tested it on both of them already, and they do definitely work. The actual test, the Jetson Nano will work a lot better because it does have a better GPU, but this board also does a good job. So let's actually get right into it and go ahead and deploy the Raspberry Ninja on these boards. Okay, so the first thing I'm really going to do is have a look at the documentation. So what we've got over here, I'll start off with the Jetson Nano board. And so what we've got over here, we've got a Jetson Nano 2GB developer kit. And as you can see, this is basically the board. And there are a couple of ways to do this. The way I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use the image that can be found on the Raspberry Ninja website. So if you actually go to Raspberry Ninja and go to the GitHub page, so there's all the instructions on the GitHub. This is the setup for the Raspberry Pi. We're not going to use this one. We're actually going to use the setup for the Jetson Nano, and I'm going to go ahead and jump to the README version. So I'm actually going to be using Steve's Jetson Nano version right here. Yep, so that is the one that installs on the 2GB. So I'm going to go ahead and download this image. So I'm going to let that download, and while that's downloading, I'll come back and talk to you all then. Okay, so we're back, and we've downloaded the Jetson Nano 2GB installer file. Now, I just wanted to call out a few things. Just to let you know, as you can see, this is the URL to download the file, and for the README, for the Jetson Nano version, I will have links in the description, so you can actually pick them up from there. However, just to also mention that this is the actual link that you can actually go ahead and download it from. A few things that Steve has mentioned over here which are pretty important. This image does have GStreamer 1.23.0, which is required for using Raspberry Ninja, and it does come pre-installed with lib camera, SRT, RTMP, FFmpeg, hardware encode, and AV1 support, which is great. It was updated on April 21st, 2023, which is not too long ago, and it is quite a large file size. So when I actually downloaded it, zip file was 6.8 GB, and when you unzip it, it comes up to about 15.5 GB. So you definitely don't, a 16 GB USD card will not actually work. You would need a 32 GB or more recommended for this installation. So that's great. So now what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go ahead and go to my downloads, and I'm going to go ahead and unzip this file. I'm going to extract all, and I'm going to extract it just here, and that'll take a while to extract. So as soon as it extracts, I'll be right back with you. Okay, great, welcome back. I have extracted the file. This is the actual file that I've extracted. You can go to my downloads, you can see this right here. Now what I need to do, the next step really over here, is to burn it on an SD card. So I do actually have a little SD card reader, and I'm actually going to take my 32 GB SD card, and I'm going to pop it into the reader. I'm going to go ahead and write this image. So we're going to actually use Balena Etcher. So I'll go ahead and fire that up. Flash from file, Jetson Nano, and I've got the image here. This is a large image, so it could take a while to flash. So I select my image. I've got my drive, which is a 32 GB file, 32 GB folder, and I'm actually going to go ahead and flash it. So this could take a while, so once again I will be back once this is flashed. Okay, so we're back, and as you can see I've just flashed my SSD, so I'm going to go ahead and eject my SSD from my PC. Oh, it's already ejected, that's fine. Go ahead and pull that out, and as you can see now, I'm gonna pull out that SSD and I'm gonna plug it into my Jetson Nano board. There's a little slot right at the bottom over here, and I'm gonna slide that SSD right in there. It's a bit of a push, so you can actually feel the click, so you know it's in. So now since I've got my Jetson Nano right here, I'm actually gonna go give it network and power. Alright, and for now, look, I'm just going to use just a webcam, but of course you can use better quality cameras, especially with the capture cards. If you've got a HDMI to USB capture card, you can definitely do that. But in this case, just as a test, I'm actually going to just use a regular Logitech 720p webcam. It should work with that, so we'll see how things go. Obviously, as you guys know, this is not rehearsed, right? So, yep. I've got my network cable right here, and I've got my I've got my Jetson Nano, so I've plugged it in there. And I'm gonna just plug in power. I've powered up the Jetson Nano. Great, and I'm just gonna actually, in a moment, get an IP address for it. This will take a few minutes for that IP address to show up. But while that actually does show up, let's take a look at the wiki. So I think the username and the password, so the username would be Ninja and the password would be vdo. Okay, so now I'm actually going to go ahead and try logging in to the my Jetson Nano. So the IP address I've got is 192.168.1.120, and I'm going to go ahead and log in. Now, just to let you know, guys, I just noticed this, that when you do log into your Jetson Nano that has the Raspberry Ninja image on it, you will notice that the password, if you actually go to the Jetson Nano folder and you have a look at the README, the password mentioned over here, it says username is Ninja and it says the password is vdo. It's actually the other way around. The username is vdo and the password is Ninja. So just to let you know that login will be vdo and the password is Ninja. Okay. So now that I'm in here, what are the steps? So let's take a look at the wiki again. So we're going to plug a camera into it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm actually going to go back to the main Raspberry Ninja folder, and in Raspberry Ninja folder, if you scroll down, you will see where it does display how to actually use it. So before I go ahead and start, I'm going to do an ls just to check what's on the disk. So we do have Raspberry Ninja, so I'm going to go ahead and just log into that, and I'm going to do another ls. We do have the publish.py application, which is the Python application that we will use. And so just going back to the documentation here, publish.py, so this will, on a basic level, this should start publishing something, or will give us some instructions. So we get a couple of errors over here. I don't know what those errors are, but it does give us a basic. So on the very basic level, it does give me a URL, and if I take this URL and if I go to a new page in my browser, paste that URL, there we go. So I do get an image. So this is my camera. Obviously it's very, very low quality at the moment. I haven't given it any flags, but as you can see, the latency is extremely low. So if you compare this, the latency is extremely low for this camera. So I'll put it over here so you guys can see. That's my webcam, and that's what you guys are actually seeing in real time. and what you see on the screen is the Raspberry Ninja image. And so you have a look at the latency. Is extremely low latency. This is the lowest latency I've ever seen. So that is just a great test for this. But let's actually get further into a few of the commands. So I'm actually going to close this page. I'm going to go back to this right here, and I'm going to go to a Control C so I can get out of that. Let's go back here. Let's see what commands we can actually use. So we will use, obviously we need publish.pi, and so we'll go ahead and pop that in. And then what I do really want is to set the bitrate. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that flag. I'm going to go in here, space, bitrate. Now we'll increase the bitrate to 6,000. I'm going to see if we can handle 6,000. H.264. We want H.264 there. And I'm going to go to select Nvidia. I don't know what the Nvidia flag actually does. Maybe it might use the GPU that's built into the Jetson. So let's try that. Space, Nvidia. Let's go back here and select frame rate. Frame rate of 30. I'm going to give it a stream ID. Give it a stream ID of today, 1, 2, 3. So there's several other options that we can actually use. But for now, I think this is sufficient for the next test. It does give me a viewer URL, so I'm going to copy that, go back here, and we're going to view it. And let's have a look at the quality. And I do think this is surely a lot better. I'm going to let it settle for a little bit, and we can take a look at the quality. And mind you guys, this is a 720p camera, so if we take a look, right click, we can go ahead and look at show stats. And this does show us what we're working with. So it is sending out a 1080p resolution. We have 30 frames, which is great. Tells me I'm connected over Ethernet. It's a video stream, it's H.264, 0% packet loss. But at the moment, we can actually go ahead and do a publish.py. And another thing I did want to show you is I'll go ahead and copy that. And as you can see now, I've got my video. However, going back to PuTTY, it's trying to change bitrate to 6,000. That's fine, but this is what it looks like from the SSH side of things. And if I go back to the video and have a look at the stats, we can see once again we're getting a pretty low FPS this time. But if I do, and the reason for that sometimes is that if the Logitech camera, so with the Logitech, if you've got less lighting, you will get a lower FPS. But now that I'm getting movement, so it does pick up. So it is variable. So now that I've got movement, it requires higher bitrate. And so now it's got a bitrate of 30 frames. It's dropped down a bit, but yeah, there is a little bit of frame drop over there. But we're not getting any packet loss. And we have a really high bitrate here. But this is obviously a good internet connection that I have. But let's say, for example, what are the other options? What I could do is, rather than bitrate of 6,000, I could go even a bitrate of 2,000. right? And it's still going to work. There we go. Just needed a refresh. So now this is what we're looking. This is 2000. So you can definitely do see the difference. Let's have a look at the stats right here. As you can see, bitrate has definitely gone down. It is displaying as 24 frames, and we've got a little bit of jitter. It is H.264. Try to remove H.264. So let's see what it comes at standard. So now, of course, it is still a grainy image. Mind you, I am using a really poor quality camera, but let's have a look at the stats now. So it still is using H.264. 30 frames, okay. So I did remove that H.264 flag, but it is looking a little bit better now. It is my lighting over there that's kind of making it a bit poor, but yep, definitely bitrate is on the lower side. Go ahead and remove the Nvidia flag. I want to see how it works without the Nvidia flag. Okay, so now we haven't actually given it an Nvidia flag. So I'm not entirely sure if it is using the Nvidia, but yep, still H.264, 24 frames, bitrate about 3000, so that hasn't really made any difference. Make a few further changes. What I may do is now increase that bitrate, 20,000. Just gonna try. Okay, so it is definitely struggling. Got a lot more latency happening there with that 20,000 kbps, but I can see the detail and the sharpness of the image now. So let's actually go ahead and drop that down to 10,000. And we'll try to push the frame rate to 60. I don't know if it'll actually work because this camera is a 30 frame camera. So let's see if that actually does work. It is struggling with that, and the reason for that is the camera that I'm using, the webcam, is 30 frames. And so I don't think that's actually going to work. Let's go ahead and stop that. And I'm going to go remove the frame rate flag. There we go. So now we've got this at a high frame rate, high bit rate, but not specifically a high frame rate. So you do have 10,000, but we do have lower FPS. But let's see if that actually goes up. I'm going to move the camera around. It does go up to 24 FPS, 28, so it is going to go up to 30 FPS right here. Oh, maybe not, it goes down to 15, but it is dependent on lighting as well, so just to let y'all know. Okay, I'm going to actually go back here. I'm going to do one last test, and that is, again, with bit rate of 30. Takes a little bit of time to settle. And of course, this is a horrible camera, but if I go back and show stats, yep, we're definitely moving closer to 30 frames. 30 frames, there we go. Bitrate's a bit low, but that's okay. I did select a higher bitrate. I'm just going to double check if I did. Yep, I did do a bitrate 10,000. Oh, there we go, sorry. That's why I did a bitrate of 30. It's a frame rate. Frame rate, and give that a go. So now we actually should see there we go. Stay higher frame rate now and a higher bit rate. There we go. Nice. 10,000 kbps frame rate, and we've got a higher bit rate as well. We can show stats. As you can see, we've got 30 frames, and you can definitely see the detail in the video. So that's great. This is basically running Raspberry Ninja on a Jetson Nano, and I'll go ahead and stop running it now. Alright, and now we'll go ahead and work on running the same thing on a Orange Pi. So this is an Orange Pi 03. It's one of the cheapest ones that you can actually get from the Orange Pi range, but it does have 4 cores and 4 gigs of RAM, and you can actually run Ubuntu or Debian on it and Raspberry Ninja on it. You do get a pretty good response from this as well. I've already tested it, but let's actually jump right in and test that now. Okay, we're back. So now, in order to build Raspberry Ninja on any of the Orange Pi devices, there is a folder. When you actually go to the GitHub repository, and the links will be in the description, there is a folder called Orange Pi. So you can actually visit that folder, and here you got the README documentation. This is looks like this has been built on an Orange Pi 5, but we're going to actually try it on the most least power consuming device, the Orange Pi 03. Okay, so as you can see, there is no pre-built image for it, so we do need to get an operating system on it and then go ahead and build it ourselves. Okay, so the operating system recommended is Debian. And so the way to actually do this, the best way to do this is to go to the Orange Pi website, and you can actually go to hardware, and we can find the Orange Pi 03. So there are more over here. And here you go, the Orange Pi 03, and I'm going to go more info, and that brings up the device. I'm going to go to downloads, scroll further down, and you'll see the images. Now I'm going to actually download the Debian image. Now I have tried it on both the different kernels, the kernel versions for Linux. I had better results using Linux 5.4 kernels, so I'm going to go there into that. And we don't need a desktop version, so we just need the server version. So I'm going to double click the server version, and I'm going to download the server. Download anyway. So we'll go ahead and wait for that to download, and we'll be right back. Okay, great. So now, as you can see, it has downloaded the zip file. I'm going to open up the folder, and I'm going to extract this Orange Pi Debian zip file. I'm going to go in and extract that. So as you can see, it has extracted, and here are the files. So we want to actually burn this image file to an SD card. So I've actually gone ahead and plugged in the same SD card that I previously used for the Jetson Nano, and I'm going to go flash another. So this will take a little bit of time to flash on the SD card. We're just going to wait until it does, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So I have flashed my 32 gigs SD card with the Bullseye Debian image for Linux kernel 5.4.1. So now with the Orange Pi, there is a little slot. Now I've actually got a heatsink on my Orange Pi, but if you don't, with the heatsink, it's a little bit difficult to see where it goes in. But you'll be able to see that. So there's a little bit of a slot at the back, and just slide your SD card in. It just slides in, no worries. And I do have power and internet right here. So I'm going to go ahead and give it internet, and I'm going to give it power it up as well. And the power is USB 3. And I'm actually going to wait for it to come online. So this might take a little bit because it's the first boot, but we're going to give it a little bit, and it is a bit slower than the Jetson Nano as well, so I got to take that into account. Okay, so we are back, and I've got my IP address for my Orange Pi 03, and so the IP address I've got over here, I've checked it on my router, is 192.168.1.109, and I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Let's see if it doesn't like it. Okay, so we're unable to SSH into it, and that is probably because SSH is not enabled onto it to begin with. So what we'll need to do is I will need to plug the Orange Pi into a screen and access it from there, and then enable SSH. I'll go ahead and do that and come right back. Thanks. Okay, so a few issues with the Orange Pi. I don't know if they are actual issues or the things you need to do. So when I did flash the Orange Pi with the Debian image, I didn't have SSH access right away. So what I needed to do was connect it to a different monitor and keyboard and mouse, you need to type in sudo orange pi-config, and that allows you to get into the config of the system. Once you're in config, you do need to enable SSH, do a bootloader update on the SD card, and also do a sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. Once you do those things, I still cannot get SSH access to the board over LAN cable. So I did enable the wireless, the Wi-Fi of it as well in the config. And that's when I was able to SSH into it. So now I have SSH'd into the board, and I'm going to log in to the Orange Pi 03. So the login is Orange Pi, and the password is Orange Pi as well. And that'll allow me to get in. Now I'm going to actually increase the font over here, and I'm going to go 16 this time. Apply. Okay. So we are now in the board. And I'm going to run a sudo apt update again. Because I did that from the config, I rather do it from command line again. And Orange Pi is the password, and now it will do another update. We'll just run a upgrade as well. So we do have a few issues with that, with some of the dependencies. So I'm going to go ahead and do what they suggest. So that's a sudo apt fixed broken install. I'm going to see how that helps. This may have been the problem why I can't get the SSH access over LAN. However, I'm going to let this go ahead and do what it needs to do, and then run a apt get update and apt get upgrade again. Update. So mind you, this Orange Pi 03 is a $25 board. And I'll do an upgrade as well. Let's see what happens here. Even if it fails, I'm going to go ahead and install Raspberry Ninja on it. Okay, great. So that upgrade has been done. It did ask me to do a reboot, so I'm going to go ahead and do a sudo reboot on this device. And I will need to SSH into it again. So it does take a little bit of time to reboot. These are very, very low powered single board computers. So I'll be right back once it has rebooted. Thanks. Okay, so we are back and it has rebooted. So I'm going to go ahead and log in again. Orange Pi is the login. The password is Orange Pi as well. Okay, excellent. So now that we're logged back in, what we need to do is we want to install Raspberry Ninja on the Orange Pi 03 and see if it actually does work. I'm going to go ahead and go back to Chrome and find, so there is, if you do go to the Raspberry Ninja GitHub repository, and obviously links, once again, links will be in the description, you will actually find a Orange Pi folder. So go into the Orange Pi folder. And it's really as simple as following the steps over here, right? So we've already done a apt update and upgrade, so that's fine. I'm not going to run that again. I'm going to actually go ahead and install Python. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with the next command and do a Python pip install. It does require me to put in my password each time. I'm going to let that go ahead and install. And while that installs, we'll take a look at the other commands. So after that, we want to install from scratch. So these are the libraries that we do require to run Orange Pi. This includes GStreamer because the Orange Pi probably doesn't have the GStreamer. So I'm going to go ahead and install these libraries right here. This will take a while as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll pause my recording and I'll be right back. Okay, and so we're back. So that does take a while to install all those libraries, and so we've actually done all of that. Now we need to install the WebSockets module. So I'll go ahead and install that one right here. That shouldn't take too long. Okay, great. WebSockets module is installed. And now we do need to install the Pi. You may need to install that. So I'm actually going to avoid that right now. Now let's try and go ahead and run things. But before I do want to actually have a look inside. So I'll go in ls. Oh, yes, of course. We haven't actually gone ahead and cloned the repository. So we do need to do that. So let me go back to Raspberry Ninja. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do a... we do want to have Git installed as well, so I'm going to go ahead and install that. It should have installed along with all the dependencies, but let's go ahead and just check if it is there. Alright, Git is already on the newest version, which is good. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and do a Git clone. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy the URL. This is the latest build. Let's go ahead and do a Git clone of that. So sudo git clone, and we'll paste the URL. Alright, so now we should have the folder in there. Now I can just really just cd into that folder. Let's have a look in the folder. Okay, so we do have a published py here as well. And now let's go back to our Orange Pi instructions. And so now that we've got the published py application, we can go ahead and let's give it a test, just as a starting point. This may not work because I remember in the past the raw did not work. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and plug a webcam into my Orange Pi. So I've gone ahead and done that now. And rather than the raw, I'm going to go to H.264. See if this works. And we do have an output. And we can go take a look at that. Yeah, so I did come across this as well before. And the idea is that we will struggle because of the CPU. So we can do a X264 here as well. And let me see if this is any better. There we go. And of course, it is using X264, but as you can see, it does work even on an Orange Pi 03. Okay, that's great. Now, what we're going to do is I want to have a look at the stats. And we are using H.264 The FPS is rather low. It's 15 FPS and 2000 kbps. So I'm actually going to go ahead and increase the bitrate on this. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can go bitrate, and we can go maybe 4000, or we can even try 6000. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the H.264. I'm going to try and see if it works without any codec flag. Get rid of the no audio as well. And let's try this. Okay, and it should have already loaded up. I'm going to refresh right here. Okay, so that's struggling there. And I believe the issue here, I'm going to try another refresh. Okay, so that's worked. That's worked again. As you can see, that is working. How's the latency over here? Why don't we check? So we've got my screen. I'm going to point the camera right over here, and I'm going to go right here. So latency is a bit more than the Jetson Nano. However, it's still really, really good. I'm going to go ahead and try a few different flags right here. Give it an H.264, but right now, run the previous command as well again. And just give it a H.264. And run that. And I'm just going to give it a bit of a refresh. See, now that is looking surely a lot better. The latency is surely a lot more than the Jetson Nano, but it's still a very, very workable latency. So that's it, folks. That is running the Raspberry Ninja on the Orange Pi 03, and of course before that on the Jetson Nano. Thanks for watching.